Hello and welcome to News Today. Coming up, President John Mahama says government will soon embark on a revival of railway services in the Western region. And on the foreign front, heavy arms fire is heard in the capital of the Central African Republic as before the UN votes on sending in peacekeepers to restore law and order. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. Stay with me. I'll bring you details of these stories and plenty more in a moment. Hello again, you're watching News Today. President John Mahama says government will soon embark on a revival of rail services in the Western region. This is to complement work at the Takoradi Port in the business of exports and imports. President Mahama also announced a special industrialization program for the region. The Sekondi Takoradi Industrial City Rejuvenation Program, according to the president, will enable the country make maximum use of economic potentials in the oil city. He was speaking at the Takoradi Port Wednesday when he cut sword for the commencement of expansion works there. Some 3,000 permanent jobs are expected to be provided when the expansion work is complete.
Since 1928, the Port of Takoradi has facilitated much of Ghana's international trade, serving generations of our people as the main export port for some of our resources like manganese, bauxite, cocoa, timber, and other agroforestry products. It has also lately become the preferred port of call for many of our landlocked neighbors. The attendant result is that over the years, the vessel sizes and the operational requests on the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority have significantly changed. This situation requires immediate and radical solutions if Takoradi Port is to remain competitive in the West African maritime environment. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my vision to implement a Sekondi Takoradi Industrial City Rejuvenation Program that seeks to further open up the region in a manner that gives true meaning to the potential that this region holds. Through the Sekondi Takoradi Master Plan and the Western Regional Spatial Development Framework, we intend to consolidate growth and create additional space for industrial expansion in this area. Among many others, we're working on a dedicated oil port services port at Tetuabo, a shore base and fabrication center at Banso, and the revival of railway services in the region, as I've just said. From here, I go to inspect progress of work on the Takoradi to Kojo-Krom railway line, and I cannot wait to come back here to inaugurate the start of rail operations on that line. And as you well know, under the CDB facility, we are working vigorously on the development of a Sekondi Takoradi Free Zones Enclave.
He also announced an implementation team to provide a further breakdown on the new Ghana Infrastructure Fund and a process of disintegration of debts owed by state institutions to reduce Ghana's debt as per GDP ratio.
In the coming weeks, an implementation team will be announced and charged with the responsibility of setting out the modalities for the establishment of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund that was recently announced in the budget. For those who have expressed worry about our current debt to GDP ratio, which is estimated currently at about 52%, I wish to assure them that we have begun a process of disaggregation of our debt and responsibility for debt owed by state-owned organizations like Gridco, Ghana Gas, Ghana Airports Company Limited, VRA, Electricity Company of Ghana, GPHA, but to name a few, that have potential to pay these debts would be transferred to debt service accounts set up by these companies under the Ghana Infra Fund. This exercise should significantly bring down our debt to GDP ratio. It is estimated to come down as low as 40%.
Now, some relief has reached the Secondary Technical School of the Deaf in the Eastern region after a story carried on Joy News as to how their landlords are intending to throw them out for non-payment of rent. My colleague Yafusoa Jemfi, who carried the stories with them, and she's joined us over the telephone. But first, let's take a look at that story.
For the past 38 years, the Senior High Technical School for the Deaf have virtually been living on donations and handouts from government and other corporate institutions. Efforts to revamp the operations of the school have not yielded much result. Thus, the school still does not have permanent structures. The school virtually has to live on the benevolence of some landlords to survive. But the landlords can take no more and are demanding that the school pays all monies owed them or risk being ejected. At the school's second speech and prize-giving day, the headmaster appealed to government to immediately come to the aid of the school.
On the 14th of this month, November, I received a letter from the property owner through the legal counsel with an ultimatum to pay an accruing debt of 14,800 cedis, which accrued from January 2011 to date, or face eviction. Our grace period ended yesterday, so any moment from Monday, we could be served with a notice of eviction, or we don't know what.
But now relief has reached them. My colleague Yafusoa Jemfi, who carried the story you just saw, is with them in the Eastern region. She's joined us over the telephone to give us a quick update as to what this relief is. Hello, Ya.
Hello, Kemini. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. Elaborate on this relief.
Okay, Kemini, just as it was aired on Monday about the ejection of the Senior High Technical School for the Deaf, you know, tomorrow is the deadline for them to be ejected out of this place. And as people have heard the plight of these students, the former national chairman of the Disability Council, Andrew Kaikwe, and his friend Al Wahab has been touched by the plight of these students. And in responding to it, they have offered half of the amount to be used in paying for the rent for these students, the arrears that has accumulated from 2011 till now. So we are here with them, and then they've made the presentation. The assemblyman for Mampong, Okeku Oko, was the one who received this money on behalf of the school. And as you know, even though half of these payments has been made, you know the challenges of this school is enormous. Looking at the challenge of them having to walk a distance of 2 kilometers up and down, briefing the chairman who made the presentation, he's been so touched by it, and then he wants other benevolent organizations to also come to the aid of the school. But talking earlier on with the headmaster, it looks like government has not yet responded, even though they've shown signs that they would come and do part of the payment or come and intervene. They haven't really showed up, but then it looks like there's a light in the tunnel to come. So, Kemini, that's the situation.
What about the meeting? The Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Education rather, had told us was going to hold with administration of SETDEF.
Hello, Kemini.
Yeah, what came out of that meeting? What was the result of that meeting between school administration and government?
Yeah, they've had a meeting with them, and they've told them they are going to intervene. But as of now, they have not paid any money to the landowners or the property owners yet. And tomorrow is the deadline. So we are still hoping that by the end of the day, they would have made an attempt in settling the rest of the bill for these students.
And so with this 7,000 Ghana cedis paid on their behalf, can we say that they are safe now? At least they've bought themselves some time?
Well, it's just a sigh of a relief, though, but these students are meanwhile happy for part of the bill being paid. They are really happy. You could see from them the smiles on their faces. They were so happy because they were wondering what they were going to do when they are going to be ejected from this place. But though
they are still faced,
has been done,
they are still faced with a deadline.
Hello, Kemini?
Are they still faced with a deadline?
Yes, the deadline is tomorrow. And so the payment has to be done in full, though. But since part of the payment has been done, we are hoping that these landowners would accept it and then give some space limits for the full payment to be done.
Right. Thank you very much. Yafosu Ajemfi joined us from SETDEF, where some relief has reached the school in cash of 7,000 cedis to offset some rent owed their landlords, and hopefully the deadline given them to pack out of the building would be taken away, so hopefully they bought themselves some time. Let's move on to some other stories. And Vice President Pakwesi Emiso Arthur has launched the Rural Enterprises Program at Sevelugu in the northern region to reduce poverty and improve the living conditions in the country's rural areas. Government will provide about $74 million for the program, estimated to cost $192.89 million.
The International Fund for Agricultural Development in the African Development Bank will support the Rural Enterprise Project with $31.78 million and $76.52 million respectively. The REP seeks to provide business support services to micro and small enterprises that generate growth, employment and profit in 161 rural districts across the country. It will also improve livelihoods of the rural poor and strengthen the linkages between agriculture, industry and service sectors of the economy. For government, the REP is an important step in accelerating the shared growth agenda and the attainment of the Millennium Development Goals. He added that the establishment of business advisory centers and rural technology facilities to provide consultancy and extension services to enterprises would facilitate the modernization of agriculture and minimize post-harvest losses. Minister of Trade and Industry Haruna Idrisu said the Rural Enterprise Project started as a project in 1995 and had scaled up due to its increasing successes.
From the current $2.3 billion to $5 billion by end of 2017. In that respect, government is promising new export incentives, which will target one person in each region of Ghana who can come with an export initiative. Government will fund that person up to $100,000 strictly for purpose of export to increase Ghana's volume of export. If that entrepreneur was a woman, government will have the funding to $150,000. I agree the Congress initiative will fund business plan that convinces Ghana that this person is up to export any produce in Ghana agriculture where there is any addition to that program. The ultimate objective, as the Minister of Trade and Industry has stated a few minutes ago, is to improve livelihoods and increase income of the rural poor. Last Chairman, the introduction of the Rural Enterprise Program is a demonstration of the commitment of the government to promoting sustainable policies aimed at reducing poverty in our country.
As part of the launch, 100 clients of REP, drawn from the Northern, Upper East, Upper West and Bonafo regions, exhibited products such as batik tie and dye, leatherworks, agro products, among others.
Debate on the 2014 budget in Parliament degenerated on the floor Wednesday as MPs called on each other. They called each other names and who was more corrupt. The free-for-all was sparked by the Majority Leader Benjamin Kumbu's comments, which sought to caution MPs about how corruption is giving the political class a bad name, citing the GNPC drill ship saga and the Woyome scandal as examples. Katie Hammond withdrew his comments and later apologized for his behavior after he was threatened by the Speaker of Parliament to walk him out. A communications specialist, Dr. Mesan Maugbe, has condemned the Adanse Asokwa MP Katie Hammond for using indecent language on the floor of Parliament. Dr. Maugbe has joined us also over the telephone. We'll find out why it's important that the politician exercise a lot of decorum while speaking on the floor of Parliament and even outside of the House. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your question.
Absolutely. Why is it important for a politician or a member of Parliament on the floor of Parliament to guard and guide his or her language?
Thank you very much. It's very important in the sense that members of Parliament are political figures and at the same time public sphere. They represent public systems. In this regard, what content that comes from them should be looked at within relationships and the aspirations of the country, the constituency they represent. And you agree with me that parliamentarians are actually extensions of various facets of society or cultural entities in this country. In that respect, there are various consequences. And there are children, many people who look at these people. So their use of intemperate language should not be encouraged at all, irrespective of what it is. And we know that the public sphere that they find themselves in is a place where discourse is discussed. And engaging in discourse is not a matter of exchange of intemperate language. Rather, views needs to be raised. But in the context of what we experienced on the floor of Parliament was below the exchange of discourse, but rather exchange of intemperate language, which shouldn't be encouraged at all.
At the end of the day, the Adanse Asokwa MP, Katie Hammond, withdrew his comments and apologized. Is that enough?
I think it's enough. And that also reinforces his realization of the office he holds and also as an extension of society that he represents. So I think we should also applaud him for rendering an apology for the demeanor he put forward at the floor of Parliament. And I think it's in the right direction, and we should encourage us when they fall short of some of these, the way they express themselves, should they come out to apologize. And I think it's a very loud apology. It shows also statesmanship. Yes.
Considering this is a human institution, in the future, how can we guard against this?
Yeah, guarding against this, I think it's a natural causes, but we shouldn't allow natural causes to take precedence over our way of doing things or our cultural values. I don't think insults are allowed even in our local settings of our chiefdoms. So it shouldn't be extended to our modern political platforms, or especially high office like the Parliament.
Thank you very much, Doc. Dr. Mesan Maugbe is a communications specialist. We've been talking briefly about what's been happening or what happened in Parliament Wednesday when there seemed to have been the use of intemperate language on the floor of the House. Move on to some other stories. And a political scientist, Dr. Kwesi Jonah, has urged the two major political parties, the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party, to agree to set up a coalition government. According to him, the kind of power sharing or coalition he's proposing is one in which the major parties that matter in Ghana come together to make sacrifices, compromise, and reach consensus in the interest of the country's accelerated development. He also said all positions, including ministerial, deputy ministerial, metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives, should be shared according to the proportion of presidential votes polled, the percentage of parliamentary seats controlled, or both. Dr. Jenner made the proposal at a public lecture in Accra organized by IBIS Ghana, an NGO, on the theme Democratic Consolidation, the Way Forward for Ghana's 2 decades of democracy and good governance experimentation. Now, the winner-takes-all system and the review, he noted the continuous practice of the present system of winner-takes-all and the loser loses everything is having negative consequences on the economy, especially during an election period when government overspends to destroy the economy for the sake of winning power. There's more news ahead. Don't go away. This is News Today. You're welcome back to News Today. Now, Parliament has ratified a petroleum exploration agreement between the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation and AGM Petroleum Ghana Limited. The ratification grants the two parties the exclusive right and authority to carry out all petroleum exploration, development and production activities in the South Deepwater Tano block. The ratification followed the approval of the petroleum agreement by Cabinet and a review by the Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines, Energy and Petroleum. The 3,482 kilometers square SDWT block is located in deep to ultra-deep water part of the Tano Basin, with water depth ranging from 2,000 meters to about 3,500 meters. It is in close proximity to the Hess-operated Deepwater Tano Cape 3 Points block, where 7 discoveries have been made, and the Vanco Lukoil Deepwater Cape 3 Points block. The agreement incorporates a significant commercial interest accruing to GNPC through a subsidiary, Exploration and Production Company Limited. The agreement gives Ghana, through GNPC, a stronger position in exploration and production activities than the country has held in past oil and gas agreements. The Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana has received a $55,000 grant from Star Ghana in support of its advocacy for the adoption of international accounting standards. The amount will, among others, be used in the sensitization of the stakeholders in the public financial sector on the need for standards.
The Institute of Chartered Accountants is a professional body mandated by Act 179 of Parliament to regulate accountancy practice in Ghana. One of its core functions is to train competent accountants and continuously educates them on new developments in the profession, and has been creating awareness on the need for the public sector to adopt international accounting standards. The Institute is currently working with the Controller and Accountant General's Department on the implementation of public sector financial reforms, including the Ghana Integrated Financial Management Information System. This is one of the reasons for the $55,000 support from Star Ghana, a multi-donor funding pool mechanism. Professor Kilakpa Sawyer is the steering committee chair of Star Ghana.
We must demand of those who receive funds from Star Ghana proper accountability, bookkeeping, all the things that we make a fuss about. And not because we are making a fuss, but because it's the only guarantee of our independence to operate as a national body with somebody's money. So if we press very hard on procedures and correctness, please understand, that's the first part. The other part is that in going towards Star 2, we are absolutely determined to ensure that it begins as a national project.
The president of the Institute spoke about the need for practitioners to constantly upgrade their knowledge on the new trends in their practice.
certainly, as an institute, we are very interested in making sure that the accountants and the auditors in both, not just public sector, but also private sector, are up to speed with the various international standards. So with other efforts, in addition to this one, I'm sure we'll be able to make some progress on that. As an institute, we are very happy to be part of this move.
The European Commission has fined 8 banks, including RBS, a total of 1.7 billion euros for forming illegal cartels to rig interest rates. The cartels operated in markets for financial derivatives, which are products used to manage the risk of interest rates movements. 2 of the 8, Barclays and UBS, were excused their financial penalties for revealing the cartel's existence. The Commission said it was shocking that competing banks were in collusion. UBS and Barclays stood to pay the largest fines of 2.5 billion euros and 690 million euros, but avoided paying anything because they have assisted the investigation. That's it for business. Today is International Volunteers Day. I'll tell you more about that when I return. Don't go away. You're welcome back. And December 5 is International Volunteer Day. The International Volunteer Day for Social and Economic Development, established by the UN General Assembly to be commemorated every 5th of December every year, is about telling the world what volunteers and volunteer-involving organizations achieve for peace and sustainable development. Volunteerism can help build your capacity through dedicated volunteers sharing their knowledge and expertise with organizations they support. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, in his message, said when young people volunteer, the opportunity provides them with valuable life and job skills. It strengthens their capacity to lead and become engaged in their communities as well as global society. On this International Volunteer Day, let us renew our commitment to offering young people diverse and meaningful volunteer opportunities to become active and confident contributors to global change. So that is the vision of Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General. With me in the studio, let's talk about our country for a moment, is Frank Park Kumi, who is Executive Director, Passionate Africa. Hello, Frank.
Hi.
2 things are highlighted in Ban Ki-moon's statement. The fact that you as a person should want to volunteer, and the fact that the opportunity should also be created for you to volunteer. Right. Let's talk about the individual spirit to want to volunteer. Assess it in Ghana.
Thank you very much, and I must say good afternoon to your cherished viewers. When I'm to give an independent, objective observation of volunteerism in Ghana, I would say it's very on a low scale, and probably the reason could be that when people volunteer, okay, they are doing that for society. However, they also expect that when opportunity comes, okay, people could, like a job, like an appointment, you know, one could visit one's volunteer work and say that, you know, years back, this is what you did for community, and therefore let's reward you, okay? And we know, for instance, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, used to be a community organizer, okay, doing volunteer work, okay? So my question will be, does it pay to do volunteer work in Ghana? And it will be a big no. Because instead of people using that as a yardstick to open avenues, job opportunities, appointment into local government, etc., it does not pay. So can we make it, can we create an incentive for people to do voluntary work for community organization?
How about, have we created the opportunity as a people? Have we created the avenue so that people can volunteer? Have we done that?
We have not. That's what I was just saying, that as a society, we have refused to recognize the role of volunteerism. To the extent that we are here and we have our friends from the United States, Canada, Australia, you know, coming to volunteer in communities. We know the issue of Cuban doctors, for instance. You know, you see them in the north, in And Ghanaians, when some of us are even posted into the Western region or the Upper West, Upper East, we don't go. However, we find Cuban doctors going as far as Upper West, the northern regions. Okay, so as a people, we have refused to create that environment, put systems in place that will make volunteerism rewarding.
How can we reverse that trend?
It's by showing example, or by those who have, because there are few people who still volunteers. Okay, so what has happened to them? Has society recognized them? As other people see those who have volunteered, the pioneers of those who volunteers, and where it has landed them to, then it will also be a morale booster for other people to also wanting to volunteer or donate their skills or time, without expecting monetary reward in return.
Why is it that people don't like to volunteer? Why? Let's look at national service, for instance.
That's right.
When people are posted to, like you were saying,
that's right,
to Nankpandure somewhere.
That's right.
I mean, you come back and say, oh, I don't want to go to Nankpandure. I want to be at some bank here in Accra.
That's right,
or something.
in Accra. That's
right. So why doesn't it seem as though we have an iota of the spirit of volunteerism in us as a Ghanaian people?
I think the issue would still be, at the end of the day, people are making comparison. Okay, if the friend, a colleague is doing a national service, maybe with VRA or something, some of these even oil companies, the allowance will be, let's say, the national allowance, let's say 250 Ghana. But when you go to some of these multinational companies, have about 500 Ghana or so.
So the economic situation has something to do with
exactly. And then what have we put on the ground for people to go to?
But as a volunteer, I know you keep saying, what's the incentive? As a volunteer, do you need an incentive to be one? Do you need an incentive to be a volunteer?
You don't need an incentive, but let me remind you that recognition is key. So when we are saying that people are not expecting monetary reward in return, it doesn't mean that they don't expect recognition. And recognition or motivation comes in diverse ways, right? For me, for instance, after senior high school, I set up a foundation that goes to senior high schools, junior high schools, try to educate these young ones on career choices. We're supposed to have guidance and counseling session in our various institutions. It doesn't really work as it's supposed to work. Okay, so we took it upon ourselves to donate our time, skills, be in the villages.
Which is also volunteerism.
That's what we were doing.
I think people don't. Maybe we don't understand what it means to volunteer. We probably think of something. We look at the big picture.
That's right.
We don't look at the little detail we could put in there to make the puzzle whole.
That's right.
And so let's look at it again.
Okay.
What is volunteerism?
I would say donating your time, resources for public good without necessarily being compensated by monetary terms.
And you shouldn't always expect government to.
That's right, and you shouldn't expect. I met a friend in Senegal, and he's a nurse, full-time nurse, and then he volunteers with a community organization that is into HIV/AIDS stuff. So in their part of, just Botswana here, okay, in their part of the world, it has become like a norm that you do your professional work, and then you donate to society. And I think that it's time we use this day to also push a strong voice out there that our professionals may be working 8 hours a day, but that does not, take away the fact that they can still...
The economic situation, though. The economic situation is tight. And so people will rather make some more money for themselves than go out there to volunteer. But on a more serious note, how can we imbibe volunteerism in the younger ones? Maybe some of us are too corrupt to reverse the trend.
Yeah, so we start with the
let's start with the younger ones.
That's
how can we make sure that they grow up better adults than we are?
Yeah, I think civic education, okay, because if we are able to teach them right from the onset that when you donate your time, your energies to the good of the nation, it's eventually come back to pay us, not in monetary terms, but of course, if society is better, let's mind you, we all become better at the end of the day, okay? But if society is not, like the place is stinking, with rubbish here and there. We are all passing by and sometimes closing our our nose or making some mockery of the whole situation.
Right.
You see, so I would say that civic education and then reward system for those who have volunteered for the nation.
Right.
It's still important.
Frank, we'll end it here for now. Thank you very much. I would like to say congratulations also to those who have volunteered here in the country over the years, but it's not too late to practice the spirit of volunteerism. And Frank Pakumi is Executive Director for Passionate Africa. There's sports news after this.
It doesn't take much to make something big happen with Tigo's free Bonto. You can text, browse, make IDD calls, and even better, call all networks with your bonus credit.
Guys, I need your help.
Dial *555*1# to activate Tigo's free Bonto. With Tigo's free Bonto, you get a double bonus on every 1 Ghana Cedi or 2 Ghana Cedi top-up, and a triple bonus on every 5 Ghana Cedi top-up or more. Use your credits how you want, when you want, no restrictions. With your free Bonto.
Smile, you've got Tigo.
You're welcome back. Let's do some sports news now. And FIFA Pro, the World Players Union, and FIFA today announced the 20 defenders shortlisted for the FIFA Pro World 16 2013. I'll give you that list in a moment. Right, so let me just go on with the list. 2 days after the unveiling of the 5 goalkeepers who made the short list, the 20 defenders are now known and will be followed by the 15 midfielders and 15 forwards, due to be announced and published on FIFA's website on 6th and 9th December, respectively. The defender shortlist is David Alaba from Austria, FC Bayern München, Jordi Alba, Spain, FC Barcelona, Dani Alves, Brazil, FC Barcelona, Leighton Baines, England, Everton FC, Jerome Boateng, Germany, FC Bayern München, Ashley Cole, England, Chelsea FC, Dante from Brazil, also FC Bayern München, and the rest. But let's move on to some other stories from within the country. The much-awaited Cape Coast Stadium is gradually moving closer to realization, with the groundwork almost completed. The 15,000 capacity stadium, which will cover a construction area of about 15,800 square meters, will cost an estimated $30 million and is being financed with a Chinese grant. Richard Kodonyako visited the construction site and has filed this report.
Work has finally begun on the 15,000 capacity sports complex, which has featured a few times in the budget statements presented to Parliament. The Chinese contractors say they will be running a 24-hour work schedule to ensure the structure is completed within the specified period of 2 years. The sports complex will boast of facilities include athletics tracks, 2 football fields and natural turf, 2 outdoor basketball courts, handball and tennis courts, boxing training field, a gymnasium, athletes hostel, LED electronic display and an audio system. Assistant project manager of the Chinese construction firm, Lu Linling, is hopeful the project will be completed within the specified period. Lu Linling, however, says the local skilled and unskilled workforce they are hoping to tap from the central region are not forthcoming, and thus wants people with the requisite skills or interest to avail themselves to ensure the project is completed on schedule. The completion of the Cape Coast Sports Stadium will increase to 5 the number of stadia in the country. Richard Kodonyako's report from the central region.
For sports. Let's check out some foreign news now. Shooting and heavy arms fire have been heard in the capital of the Central African Republic, Bangui. The city has reportedly been attacked by supporters of President Francois Bozize, who was ousted by rebels in March, plunging the country into chaos. It comes hours before the UN Security Council is due to vote on French troops joining the African peacekeeping force. A Christian militia is suspected to have killed 12 people, including children, and wounded 30 others in an attack in the Central African Republic. It has been gripped by conflict since rebels seized power in March. Ex-President Francois Bozize was ousted in a rebellion led by the Seleka group leader Michael Jotodia. Is the first Muslim to rule the CAR, which has a majority Christian population. Right, so over the telephone lines, international news analyst Ilbad Ibrahim would look at the situation in Central African Republic and then wrap it up with that of Joe Biden's visit to Asia. Hello, Ilbad.
Thank you, Manny. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us on News Today.
Welcome.
The UN Security Council is due to vote on peacekeeping operations in the CAR. There have been firing of arms and some shootings in the area as well. What are the expectations of this vote?
I think the avowed objective of such a military mission, as has been explicitly stated by France's Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, is to end the humanitarian tragedy in the country, re-establish security, and help the democratic transition. We are told that the conflict has now assumed a sectarian dimension. Gunfire has been echoing through the capital of CAR since morning, and in the process, about 23 people have been killed, and 64 others have been injured. The current leader, Michel Jotodia, who is the leader of the Seleka Former Rebellion Alliance, is not in total control of a loose band of rebels that helped him topple the former president. And therefore, the Christians feel like they are being targeted by the rebels. Many of the rebels come from Chad and Sudan. So therefore, you can tell from their origin that they are Muslims. So the Christians have also coalesced, and they formed what they call anti-Balaka militias to fend off attacks coming from the Muslims. So the imprints of the 94 genocide in Rwanda are quite clear on the minds of powers like the U.S. and other countries. And therefore, they can't just sit idly by as any atrocity takes place in CAR. So the French are ready to commit about 1,200. The French people are close to very sure that by 3 p.m. Ghana time, that is around 1500 GMT, they would have been given the mandate by the UN Security Council. So maybe in the next 24 hours, we shall see escalation. We shall see clashes between French forces and the rebels in the streets of CAR.
But would that be the best move for the situation in the CAR?
Historically, France has been good at preventing civil war in its former colonies. And over the past few years, we've seen that France has taken quite a formidable step in putting other countries' acts together for them. And we saw what they did in Côte d'Ivoire and other former French colonies. And therefore, if the people themselves cannot find a political and peaceful solution to their own transition problem, and the current interim leaders are overstaying their welcome, and they have no total control over their country, and therefore there is instability. If France can come in and use its bully pulpit to put things right, then that is the best option for us now. But my fear is that after the defeat of the rebels, perhaps we may have the semblance of Islamic rebellions elsewhere in the world take root in the CAR.
Let's talk about China and Japan role for a moment. Now, Joe Biden has said that the new air defense zone by China is causing some sort of apprehension in Asia. What does it say then of the role that already exists when it comes to air zone between China and Japan?
According to a UK company called OAG, mind you, it has been in the aviation business for more than 80 years. the airstrip in question is a very busy patch of airspace in the East China Sea that is flight by some 1,000 aircraft every day. That makes up about 6% of air traffic in the whole of East Asia. So therefore, China's assertion of absolute control over such an important sliver of airspace is an audacious move that has duly caused some feathers to be rustled in that region. The Chinese call that disputed island Diao, while the Japanese call it the Kanko. I don't think China's flexing of its muscles can spark off any confrontation with Japan right now. But if there is any Sino-Japanese war, then the Japanese will come into the battlefield with more credentials, historically speaking, because those two countries have fought each other twice in the past 150 years. And in both cases, Japan outgunned and outmaneuvered China, even though China came in with the numerical strength. And therefore, what does that mean for the international community? Countries like the U.S., South Korea, and Great Britain are worried they will undertake a 2-day joint drill of warships in the region, which will start on Sunday. So the U.S. Navy has already breached the announced airspace with its B-52 bombers. So the U.S. will not stop China from carrying out the enforcement of such a zone, but it will continue to breach it. But weaker countries of the world have already acquiesced. Yesterday, the Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister said up to 55 airlines from 19 countries have approved that, and they are going to give their flight schedules to China before they fly over the airspace. So it is a very strong political statement, which is a feather in the cap of China in the region. And it may also come with its own economic benefits for the country as well.
Thank you very much, Ilbad. Ilbad Ibrahim is international news analyst. We've been talking about the CAR and China-Japan row over airstrip. Let's do some showbiz news now. And one of Ghana's most anticipated music and art festival, Indie Fuse, is set to roll with a new phase. The 3-day festival comes off from December 12 to 14 at various locations, including the Republic Bar at Usu and the Alliance Française in Accra. Ahead of the festival, Showbiz caught up with two of the artists on the bill, Fatau Keita and Checheku, for a chat.
My name is Fatau Keita from the northern region.
My name is Checheku, singer, songwriter, guitarist. Every Indie Fuse is unique in a certain way. Being a platform where you have indie artists coming out, alternative artists, and still mainstream artists all merged on a certain platform to perform. You can feel that there's a lot of good mix. And this year especially, we're having the show. The main music part starts at the Republic Bar on the 13th. And it's partly DJ music and partly live music. You have Kina Isoba and myself playing, so that good mix. Last time, I'm not sure we had something like that. All the music was for the 14th, which was at Alliance. We're having Vili, Looney, Mechi Correct, and a few other people who are playing for the first time. So it already promises to be good. In that sense, it looks quite different from what happened last year.
The Los Angeles Coroner's Office released the results of the autopsies conducted for Paul Walker and Roger Rhodes Wednesday, finding that Walker died from the combined effects of traumatic and thermal injuries, while Rhodes died of multiple traumatic injuries. Both deaths have been ruled an accident, while a toxicology report is still pending on both cases and is expected to be completed in 6 to 8 weeks. This is also the first time both Walker and Rhodes have been formally identified as the two fatalities from the Santa Clarita accident Saturday. Walker and Rhodes were both killed when the Porsche Carrera GT they were driving crashed into a pole. You're watching news today. In our main stories, President John Mahama says government will soon embark on a revival of rail services in the Western region. Heavy arms fire is heard in the capital of the Central African Republic hours before the UN votes on sending in peacekeepers to restore law and order. Thanks for staying with me throughout the hour on News Today. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. Happy Farmers Day if you're in Ghana tomorrow. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. Goodbye.